excited to talk a little basketball and some music.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Um, so just like the one thing I like to do, just jumping right in, a little tip off question I like to have is I just like to know what you're listening to, what kind of bands you've been into, or if you've been listening to old stuff. Yeah, what's been playing in your rotation right now?
Well, I just got off tour
Hmm.
a few, well, like a week ago, I guess. So I was listening to um a mixture of stuff. Um, some people gave me their tape in Portland, and they're called Swamp Wives, Swamp Wife. Yeah, that's what it is, Swamp Wife, and their
Cool.
music's cool. Um, I like Gel. Um, this band Teeth put out an EP, but it's not the Teeth that is like hip. It's like super like fast kind of metalcore.
Okay.
The EP is called A Biblical Worship of Violence. And so I like that a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, and then, a lot of the indie and folk stuff that is coming out that everybody's into. I'm into that stuff too, but
Cool.
nothing
Nice.
nothing that's not like that the TikTok kids don't already get into, all the
Right.
emo folk stuff, So
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times on tours, there's like just so much stuff in rotation when you're going between cities.
Yeah, long drives, it's like you start to get um me and my guy John, who TMs, we start to get like we're looking for like weird podcasts,
Yeah.
and we're just like we start listening to like conspiracy radio call-in like episodes from like the 80s and stuff. Like we
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Or like the Paul Giamatti has a podcast which goes into that stuff a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay. That's a
Yeah.
good tip. I gotta
Yeah.
remember that. He's got a good one, and so does there's this guy who's been doing like conspiracy calls since the 90s, and we listened to a really good episode with Tom DeLonge.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he
Perfect.
called in. Yeah, and that was really good. Um John would remember his name, but I'm bad at
Yeah, yeah.
that stuff.
It's yeah, and Kyle Kinane's another one who does a kind of paranormal sort of podcast.
Maybe that's
Um
who it is. Is that
yeah,
a
it's
young person or an old person?
he's like a Chicago stand-up comedian. He's probably in his like early 40s.
Okay. I don't remember this guy being funny, but that could be it.
Um well, cool, man. That's awesome. And so one thing we've started doing for this podcast is I kind of every guest I have come on, I like to have them recommend a song to add to this continuous playlist that we're building.
Okay.
So you got any hot tips for what you want to add?
Just any song?
Any song you want to recommend? Like you got to listen to this song, or that you've
Wow.
just been really into lately.
Man, that is like
It's a
that's a
loaded question.
big, yeah, that's like crazy. Well, luckily I'm sitting at my computer, so I'm gonna see it in the recently played if there's
Yeah.
anything that hits. I mean, I when we when we pulled into San Francisco, because I am one of those people that I do like to kind of think about regional artists that
Hmm.
I am into instead of trying to like think of what's new or whatever. Like sometimes I'll just kind of listen to stuff that I love that is from where we're at. And
Yeah.
so when we were pulling into San Francisco, I remember when I lived in Oakland, uh, one of Ty Segall's bands put out an album, his band Fuzz. I don't know if you
Hmm.
ever got into them, but and so I feel like the song What's in My Head
Okay.
off of their self-titled album, that one's like that's really that's like a perfect stoner rock song.
Sick.
Yeah.
All right. It's going on the playlist. Love it.
Cool.
Um, cool, man. Yeah. So from Indian Lakes dropped you got a new album came out a couple months ago now at this point. Um, do you wanna? So you just got back from tour, you said?
Yeah, just got home about a week ago. Maybe a little
So
more than that, but yeah.
I guess yeah, like tell me a little bit about kind of what went into making that most recent record and how touring has been since.
Um, yeah, it's uh it was made in my new home. And I sort of built out this space that I'm sitting in. Um,
Looks
and
like a great setup, yeah.
yeah, it's a vibe. Space for drums and amps and all that. And so once I moved in here, it kind of like once I was pulling out the equipment and getting everything set up, and then I started plugging stuff in, and that just kind of turned into an album. And then Will Yip, uh, he was listening to my demos, and we were gonna do the album together, but our schedules kind of didn't really work out. So he ended
Mhm.
up just kind of helping me finish it. And my music partner Matt, who we've been in bands since we were in like eighth grade together. And so uh he's worked on all the fill stuff, and um so he and I just did most of it, and he mixed most of it. And um yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple rock like thing. Every album is kind of all about the context of life,
Yeah, yeah.
a new apartment, or uh a label with a big budget and like a fancy studio, and like all the different ways you can go on those kind of rock journeys. But this one felt like it was kind of the first time that it was like really hitting and really easy and simple, and the vibes were flowing,
Mhm.
and we were like, oh yeah, this is like gonna hit. And then it came out and it did hit, and the tour was mostly sold out, and it's all gone really well. So I'm
Oh
feeling
yeah.
good. And the kids are rocking right now, so it's all kind of like feels like the timing, everything's kind of the right time. So
Very nice. You mentioned you've been making music with your buddy since eighth grade. I'm curious, was what's the name of your first band?
oh man, yeah, we had so many bad band names. It's funny too, like I don't think I've ever like gone into detail in any interviews or anything, but like he had like a Schecter guitar that was like a Papa Roach signature guitar
Mhm.
when we were like 13 and 14. And
Papa Roach.
yeah, and it had like a cockroach on the it was like a red guitar with like a
Uh-huh.
cockroach on the bottom. It's really cool. And so we'd play, and I had like cheap Pacific, my first like red Jose Pasillas, the drummer from Incubus. It was his
Okay, yeah.
signature like budget kit. So we were like real like new metal heads, which is funny because of where that has kind of come around.
Yeah.
Uh, like when I was on tour, people talking to me about new metal was really funny to me.
Yeah, the what's the thing I saw? It was New Gaze.
Yeah,
New Gaze
yeah,
is the vibe right now.
yeah. And people talking to me about like the album being shoegaze, and I'm just like, all right, like
If you
it's
say
kind of
so.
funny. Yeah, I mean, it's like I've always been there. People have always like mentioned shoegaze with depending on like what song you're listening to
Hmm.
from the catalog, but it's never been so like, young people have been like, why'd you decide to make a shoegaze album? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good question. Yeah, I'll have to think about it. But I
It is
can't,
funny, yeah.
I think our first band names were just a lot of like words like mixed together. I distinctly remember people asking us our first band, our first like real band when we were probably sophomores. We were asked to play a show, and I just remember there was like we just put different words together that were
Mhm.
really stupid. So
A word
like,
salad, yeah.
yeah, it's like falling through never. I I think that is like the first band name that we tried.
I mean, I feel like that is like the new metal template, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
one of my first bands was definitely in the height of, the like Hawthorne Heights era. So
Oh
we
yeah.
were called the Side Effects of Summer, which just like that fit the vibe.
Whoa. That's not bad, but it's also terrible.
Yeah, for
It's like
sure.
kind of perfectly like now you can kind of look back on that name and be like, "Oh,
Right.
that's sweet." But at the
It
time,
requires an explanation though. People are always like, "What are the side effects of summer?"
oh, that sucks actually. That
Yeah.
probably sucked.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, like mosquito bites, I guess. Like just
Yeah. Having a question type a name that makes people ask questions really
yeah.
sucks.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I'm sure people ask questions about your name, which from what I've heard is mostly a proxy, right? It was like it's just like you
Yeah.
release songs and like yeah, songs from
Yeah,
Indian Lakes.
it's just where I'm from
Yeah.
and you'd think people would think that that is the case, but they're always like um, kind of squares are always like where you know, where are you from? LOL. I'm like, I don't
Real
know.
original, guys.
Yeah, yeah. And then I say it and they're like, "You're kidding me." It's like, I don't know. What's the joke? You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's not a deeper story here, yeah.
Yeah.
Um well, so, obviously having you come on here, I was put on that you are a basketball fan. Um
Yeah.
and
That was
I
a
am
funny email to get.
yeah, right.
He was like, "You
Uh
probably don't want to do this." And I was like, "Wow, I guess we don't really know each other that well, me and my publicist."
yeah. Uh I'm always curious, when people are out on tour and you're touring with like other bands, are there any other moments or like when you've been on tour or just where basketball and music have kind of intersected?
Yeah, I mean, the craziest thing that's happened is the team chef is a fan and like one showed up to my solo show a couple years back.
Mhm.
So it was like very personal and he just like told me who he was and he was like um I heard you're a fan of the team or whatever and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a massive fan." And I showed him and I was wearing a Warriors hoodie and he was like, "That's cool." And then I didn't do it on purpose, but I just happened to have a Warriors t-shirt on underneath too.
There's like,
And
yo, super fan out here.
yeah, it was like kind of ridiculous. And I was like, this is so funny. I actually didn't mean to do this. And then he showed me a photo of him golfing with Chris Mullen. And he was like, "Do you know who this is?" Like he was kind of like testing me.
Testing
And
you.
then I showed him a photo of me in a vintage jersey of Mullins. And I was like,
Do you want him over?
yeah, I was like, dude, this is like a very funny thing. I'm probably the only artist you could have been a fan of that would have been that goes this hard for the Dubs. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're the second Warriors fan I've had on of late. I had Sammy from Mom Jeans on, and he's a huge Warriors fan.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was just on tour with some Mom Jeans crew homies.
nice. Yeah,
Um, so that's cool. That makes
uh,
sense.
Oakland dudes. Yeah. Um, so I guess transitioning a little bit into basketball talk. Are you? So you're like, some people I have on are, I watched it when I was a kid. I don't really watch much anymore. Are you still in the thick of it?
Yeah, ball is like truly life for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Truly life.
my partner has had to explain to people sometimes that think that it's a bit where she's like, "No, point blank asked Joe if you had to just quit music today, but you could play basketball for the rest of your life, what would you do?" And it's like no hesitation. I wouldn't even think twice. Like, are you kidding me? Like music's cool, but I have been passionate about basketball my whole life.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't tell me a little bit about that? Like growing up, like did you grew up in Did you grow up in the like this kind of like same like in Indian Lake? Like, did you like guess grow up a Warriors fan from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean my dad is from Fresno,
Hmm.
California. Um, where do you live? Where are
I'm
you
in
born?
Chicago. But I
You're in
do actually have
Chicago.
friends in Fresno.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I probably know him. It's kind of a small town in a big city kind of vibe,
Sure.
but um so I kind of like but then when I was uh we moved up to the mountains where Indian Lakes is when I was
Mm.
in like second or third grade. So pretty much lived up there uh till I became an adult and moved
Right.
out. But his family was all Oakland sports, everything. So um A's, Warriors, Raiders, really, really
This was
hardcore
unintentional, by
Raiders.
the way.
Yeah,
I,
what's
I
up with that?
I promise you it was unintentional. I'm also a huge baseball fan, and
Okay.
I am an avid like just hat wearer. But A's have always been my AL team, uh,
Mm,
because I was 12 years old when like the Moneyball era was. So
cool.
I wanted to be Barry Zito.
Yeah. And it's funny too when we're kids, it's like whoever has like sick merch.
Totally
Yeah.
unmatched colors. Like not many teams have these colors.
Yeah, that the A's merch always went hard and I remember for like a year I was sort of like a fake Hornets fan.
Yeah, yep.
Uh because the merch
The
in the
purple and
90s
teal.
just went so hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my dad was super irritated.
I feel like so many people, growing up had, no matter where you were, I mean, even in Chicago, I saw it a lot, those zip up starter jackets,
Yeah,
the,
those were
the,
so
the,
good.
the teal Hornets one. And so many people had
Yeah.
it.
Those and just random like I'll still see like gray like heather gray shirts with the Hornet
Hmm.
dribbling a basketball kind of
Yeah,
like vibes or yeah, it's just that that goes hard. So
for sure.
but yeah, so we grew up I went to Raiders games. They were mostly into football
Hmm.
which I've always I mean, I love going to sports events, like pretty much
Yeah.
anywhere there's hot dogs and beer. I'm like down. So like grew up going to hockey and baseball and football and a ton of basketball. I was actually a ball boy at Fresno State.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, just like um, it wasn't very fun, I but it was a vibe, and I went to like the basketball camps and like did all that kind of stuff. So um,
When you were there, were any future NBA players playing there?
the biggest, not well, actually, probably the largest as well, but the only person that went on to have like a pretty decent career was uh Eli. Why can't I think of his first name? Um Something Eli.
Melvin Eli, is that right?
I was gonna say Melvin Eli, and for some reason it felt wrong. That's so funny.
Let's
Um
let's do a quick fact check. Melvin yeah, Melvin Eli.
he was a center.
Yep, Fresno State. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had a pretty decent career where um it seems like he was able to make a living. Like that's like
Yeah.
obviously an underrated like basketball uh vibe is to go make it to a few teams, like even if you're G League in between here and there, and
Hmm.
then and then it seems like he retired with like a pretty solid career. So
I'm sure he
um
went on to coach. That's usually the trajectory.
yeah, I think he was an assistant coach in is he I can't remember, it's either Houston or maybe in New Orleans. I can't
Yeah.
remember. It's one of those places, but yeah, he was on the team. So I have that. I have a basketball signed by Jerry Tarkanian, which I forget the context of that, but yeah, so I have like weird random
That's bragging rights for
stuff like
sure.
that.
Yeah, you gotta let people know about the Tarkanian ball.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because people associate him not with uh his his Fresno run, but
Sure.
But yeah, so that's cool. I have a lot of like random basketball stuff like that, mostly Warriors, like
Yeah.
bobbleheads and things like that. But um, yeah, so just growing up, just a lot of sports stuff, and I played a lot of sports. And then when I got into high school, I after freshman year,
Mhm.
I growing up in the mountains, like where I'm from is right outside of Yosemite National Park, and the
Sure.
high school is called Yosemite High. So it's
Okay.
like all the mountain communities from a 45-minute range all go to this one high school. And I played basketball freshman year. Um, I was pretty good for somebody who was, I mean, I grew up in a trailer with no electricity, just like I grew up like as white trash as anyone could ever be. So I was pretty good for someone who had not a lot of fundamental like team basketball skills.
Sure.
But I was playing music and I was already in bands since I was like 12. And so the coaches really didn't love my vibe.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to cut my hair. They said I couldn't play it.
Oh,
Basically, they said if I didn't cut my hair, they would continue to scrimmage me with the girls, which is what they did, which
in retrospect,
nowadays,
definitely not cool.
yeah, and nowadays, like if I had had like a Twitter, it would
Yeah.
have been game over. But instead, I was like, okay, this sucks. And they just weren't very nice to me in general.
He
So I
clearly
stopped
wasn't
playing.
ready for Kelly Olynyk, you know?
I know, it's so funny. Yeah. Olynyk and I look like we could be related. I used to in New York, we lived in New York for a long time and kids who were really small, so they didn't realize that I was like a foot shorter than him.
Right.
They would ask me if I was Kelly Olynyk. It's really funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
So
get Seth Rogen when really I'm like a foot taller than Seth Rogen.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. I don't think you look like Seth Rogen.
I'm happy to hear that. You know, I don't think it's the worst doppelganger to have, but
No,
I feel like
he's
I just look kind of like every dude who listens to indie music and watches basketball.
yeah, I think maybe there's like a glasses beard
Yeah.
thing happening, but you know, yeah, he's not a bad looking person, but but uh but yeah, so just always been into basketball and still am. We've been having a good few years,
Mhm.
so
It has
been a
been
blast.
quite a run.
Yeah.
It does feel like the run may be coming to a close soon. But,
Yeah.
I'd like to know your thoughts on that. Do you feel like the window is shutting?
I think I would have told you yes a few years ago,
Hmm.
but that championship in 22, um, it was so too good to be true kind of
Yeah.
feeling that Steph could actually be like that massive of a legendary athlete.
Yeah.
Um, that now I feel like if you are a true basketball fan, you'd be a fool to be super firm on that feeling. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I just feel like until we see a season of Steph being not that good, I just
Right.
can't. You know what I mean? If it happens this season, then maybe next season I'll be like, okay, I think it's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think 22 established like you can never ever underestimate Steph.
Yeah, and even the next year when um they got booted in the second round, him game 7 scoring 60
Mm.
against that Kings team. I was with some Kings fans just apologizing for like the whole fourth quarter because I was like, guys, I'm sorry. I really didn't think that this was gonna happen.
You're right.
And he was just like, he's yelling at the crowd. He's completely demoralizing this Kings team that's so much better than the Warriors
Hmm.
team at the time. And he just completely just stole their souls. I just felt horrible.
I mean, I think there's so I don't know if it's a truly ever happened, but to see a dynasty who won a couple championships and then get injury problems, and literally get last place and first pick in the
Yeah.
draft. And then the following year, just like, oh, we're back.
Yeah, it was kind of psycho. Like I just remember talking to people about how much fun the I can't I think it was only 11 wins. It might have been 14
Mhm.
wins, but the season just so crazy, just gnarly bad. But it was a blast because, it's so much fun when you're watching mediocre players with no expectations, that can be really
Yeah.
fun. And also like I remember we beat the Harden Rockets on the Christmas Day game,
Hmm.
and my dad and I were texting each other, and we were like talking about like printing merch for the win because we were like, this is if this is feels better than like our last championship. Like this is
Right.
like the sickest win ever, and it's as good as it's gonna get this season. So we were like, we were on top of the world. But yeah, I definitely did not expect that next year. I mean, especially the way it went down going against a Boston team that
Yeah.
was at the beginning of the season. I remember talking to people about how it was like the last team that we would want to face in the playoffs. If somehow we managed to get that far, it would be like an easy win for them. And
Yeah.
then the way we beat them was just kind of crazy.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I'm actually wearing a hat that says that has the final score
Oh
of
man.
that.
That's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, somebody gave this to me on tour, and I told him I was gonna be like buried in this hat.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I have never seen that.
Yeah, so sick.
So now let's talk a little about the team, like kind of outlook going into next year. I guess I'm curious to know your thoughts on the Clay situation,
Yeah.
his exit.
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty disappointed about I'm at peace with the team
Mhm.
dynamic as far as like I'm really looking forward to all of those terrible shots that he took last year being replaced by people who are open,
Yeah,
or just let Steph shoot more, which is always a higher percentage than most
true.
players who are like wide open.
Or let someone like Kaminga get some more touches and stuff
I
like that.
know, yeah. Or Moody, like if we don't
Yeah.
trade Moody, um, I'm really excited to see him get a lot of those minutes because one of the most frustrating parts about Clay last year was Moody coming in playing amazing 100% of the time that he
Hmm.
was put in, and then um, Clay outing, and then coming in and losing us. Him and Wiggins, Wiggins, it's
Ooh, yeah.
it's it's rough, but it's whatever. He had a really good attitude about it, and he
Yeah.
moved to the bench, and Clay moved to the bench too, and he played so much better coming off the bench too, which is why it was so frustrating to hear about how unhappy he was
Hmm.
about the team and the ownership and the coaches, and I don't know. It's disappointing that somebody like him, who's been one of the favorite players across the whole league for so long, to kind of go out that way is definitely disappointing.
Sure.
Um, but like I said, I'm excited about the
Yeah.
kids. We have some of the best young players.
I
I don't
never
know
know how to
how.
say his name.
Uh,
What's Pajemski? Is that his name?
yeah, Podziemski. Yeah, it's like I think
He's
it's supposed
fun.
to be like
Yeah.
Podziemski or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I just can't believe him and Trace Jackson Davis are like, I don't know how they, when they try to pick the next superstar, they are like the worst uh team at doing that ever,
James Wiseman.
multiple times. Yeah, exactly. They've just botched it so many times. And then they'll always pick up these guys that turn out to be like the best role players that every
Oh yeah.
team wants.
I mean,
So
even your short glimpse with Jordan Poole, like I don't think anyone really expected him to play as well as he did until he stopped playing as well as he did.
I know, yeah. I was pretty happy that he was gone, just because you can only deal with the turnovers and the no defense for so long.
Hmm.
But but yeah, talking to people about him is kind of funny because if you were there, he had one of the all-time worst rookie seasons ever.
Yeah.
His stats were he's like a top 10 worst rookie to ever play in the NBA, which is so crazy. But he
Hmm.
shot like 14% or something, and he went to the G League and he spent like almost like two full seasons at the G League, and then everybody got injured, and suddenly he got, um, he just put in the work and he
Sure.
became like a really competent offensive player. But he would have some really bad games, and people would be talking to me about it, and I'm like, I'm frustrated too, but also this kid, he came into the league and he's kind of a cool story about hard work,
Right, right.
so
I think some
yeah.
people saw the outbreak he had, or breakout rather, that he had, and for some reason the story became that him playing bad after that was not the norm, but like really that breakout season was not the norm.
Yeah, for sure. I think he was on a heater and a lot of stuff had to come together at the right time.
Right.
Um, and like usual, like with Clay, with him, the ego is kind of just what sort of seems to
Yeah.
mess up a lot of these guys.
Getting in fights with Draymond, and yeah, that doesn't
Yeah.
help.
And I remember at the end of that championship season when Steph was injured for that stretch, which was like one of the reasons why we were able to even win a championships, because like the timing of Steph getting like 3 weeks of rest
Hmm.
and then jumping in once the first round started, and so Clay was coming back, and so he got all these great touches and he was getting his feel back, and then Poole was doing his thing. But I remember he had this game where he had like 14 um assists and he had
Hmm.
no turnovers, and it was like his
Who
first
is
no
this guy?
turnover game. Yeah. And I remember thinking like, okay, here we go. Like this is like he is listening and he's
Hmm.
gonna do his thing or whatever. And then in the presser, I remember they were like asking him about it. And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's all. I've always had that in my game. That's just how I play." And like he was saying stuff where you're like, "Okay, actually,
Uh-huh.
we can all see where this is going. Like
Yeah,
he's gonna be one of those dudes that might, if his shots stop falling, he's gonna be a problem."
sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see where the Warriors kind of land next year. And I don't know who, because you went from being overloaded on guards to maybe you're now a little light because
Yeah,
Chris Paul's in the Spurs now.
I know, which is so cool. Like
Yeah.
I, as much as CP3 is hard to love sometimes, like
Go
if
hang
you
out with
like
Wemby.
basketball, yeah, I mean, come on. If you love basketball, like that's so cool to see uh those two together.
I mean,
That's gonna be a blast.
he is essentially being like, all right, no championship for me.
Yeah, but at the same time,
I guess you never know.
they're gonna have some of that like what he did with the Thunder those
I
two
think
years.
we're seeing that in the NBA in general. Like young teams are rising very fast.
Yeah.
Um, the
Somebody
Thunder are
like
just
him.
so good.
Oh my God, yeah, the Thunder, I think they are I think they're gonna be a real problem, although there's definitely certain teams. I worry that the Thunder did what certain teams have done in the past, like they traded Giddy and certain things that people sort of saw as like the main problem, but at the same time, um, I don't know. I guess they got Caruso, so that's
Yeah, as a
incredible.
Bulls fan,
But
I can't possibly say that they got the better end of or they got the worst end of the deal. Yeah, Caruso
yeah,
bolsters their defense big time, which is what they needed.
yeah, that's true. I think Giddy got a was sort of underrated as far as people acting like he wasn't a good passer and he was a
I
bad
feel that.
shooter and all this. Like you can watch the USA I mean, you can watch the Olympic basketball
Right.
and you can just see that he's a pretty amazing point guard. I
Sure.
think he's going to be
Yeah.
really good on the Bulls.
Yeah.
So
I'm
he was just
curious to see what
playing next to
happens.
guys on the Thunder that were like, those guys are just unbelievable
Totally.
offensively.
Yeah, pales in comparison. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, so one last thing I'd like to kind of propose when it comes to the Warriors, who all time. So like growing up, obviously you grew up in a little bit before the kind of Steph era. Who would be your all time starting five Warriors?
Oh my God. How did I not think you realize you were going to ask me this? Um,
I mean, I think we know who the one is,
you're talking Steph.
unless you want to move him to the two. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, Steph, it's hard not to. I mean, there's swag versus like if I wanted to put together a team that's going to win.
yeah. I mean, you could theoretically just pick you know, the 2016 team or whatever.
Yeah, that's tough because like obviously no one who's a real Warriors fan is going to include KD on like an all-time
Right.
list because although I think on paper it's not what people say it was,
Yeah.
his whole vibe about it is like kind of no thank you to most of us, you know what I mean? It's like fine, if you act like it wasn't that big of a deal, then we'll act that way too, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
um yeah, I gotta go Steph. I think that I would include Clay if it wasn't for what just happened.
Right.
So I think I'm gonna go Steph and Dre because Dre is sort of weirdly underrated as much as he is
Sure.
overrated sometimes.
I
Like,
mean, a valuable player to have on a team.
yeah, I mean him at the four,
Hmm.
as far as like him being a top five defensive player at any position, I mean that's pretty clutch. So I'd say those two, Mullen,
Hmm.
because not only was he a great shooter, but I mean, he's on the dream team and
Right.
he's like he's got a lot of swag. Everybody loves him. So, um, how many is that?
Oh, you got three. You got unless you're including Clay.
No, no, no. Let's go Steph, Dre, Mullen. I'm gonna
What about
say,
the pre, I mean, when you were growing up,
yeah.
what players were you really
I'm trying to
into?
decide on which from like the We Believe
Right.
era. I guess Baron Davis just big time
Yeah.
nice guy, like swag.
Right.
Got the legendary dunks, which is sick.
I don't know why I had such an irrational like for Corey Maggette.
Okay, why?
I don't know. I think I remember him being in the dunk contest and like thinking him doing the front flip was like so cool, even though it really wasn't.
I mean, that is sick though. And like that kind of stuff, like I was just talking to I play basketball every week and there was a guy who's from uh the Bay, but he's a Spurs fan.
Oh,
And he just said that when he was like really little, he somebody gave him uh I can't remember the guy's first name. Robinson, that big legendary Spur from the 90s,
David
the early
Robinson.
90s. David Robinson. Yeah,
Yeah.
he had his rookie card and then he like looked it up at the time and it was worth some money even as a
Hmm.
rookie. And so he was like, "Oh, that's crazy." And then he saw like a Spurs game and he just said it was a blast and the team was awesome and he just has been a Spurs fan ever since. So it's like
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that stuff there doesn't like you saw him do the dunk contest and it's like
Right.
that's all it takes sometimes, you know what I mean? To
Same reason earlier I was talking about Barry Zito. It's like I'm like, oh, the way he pitches is just so cool. And like it just stuck with me.
yeah, that's a vibe. So I get it. I wouldn't personally choose
Yeah,
him.
no, skill wise, understandable.
I'm too
Uh,
I'm too preoccupied with like a team that's gonna win, I guess.
so you got Baron Davis, Steph, Dre, Mullen. I guess you need a big,
Yeah,
unless
I
you're
know that
putting Mullen and Dre at the 4 and 5, which is an undersized squad. But
that's you could do that today probably, but
yeah,
I know most people are gonna go Wilt. but to me that just seems like too. I
Right.
actually, I'm actually gonna go. This is kind of stupid, but I'm gonna go
It's your team.
uh Andre Iguodala
Sure.
because that's a sick five
Drake can hold it at the
starting.
5. He'll be fine.
Well, the thing is like Dre actually is very capable. If we're in like a like round one of the playoffs, I'm putting Dre at the five against anybody. I mean, AD or one of these guys, they're gonna have a good night uh once or twice, but
Mhm.
Dre, until once again, he's like Steph. Like until I see somebody just absolutely dominate Dre in a series,
Sure.
it's like he's still that dude. So I'd say him at the five,
Yeah.
Mullen at the four, and then uh Steph, Andre. Like
Yeah.
that's a vibe. And
It's a
then
solid
Baron
squad.
Davis.
Many clutch
Yeah.
options.
Yeah. Except Davis, I guess, would be kind of undersized, but not really.
No, he's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be fine.
Uh Sick. Yeah, that makes total sense. Cool. So it's a similar kind of task here, and this is the last thing I kind of have for the podcast, but I like to do a little game aspect, and it's called Build a Band. So would love to see you. I don't know if you saw it from the email earlier, but if you're able to make a band out of NBA players, like
Yeah.
what position or what instrument would they play? Make a cohesive band. What's their
Yeah.
sound? All that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely, that is going to be different because now we're
Yeah.
talking like vibes.
Oh, it's all vibes. Yeah.
Vibes and style. I actually would go Clay on guitar.
hmm
Moody. Uh, he's Moody, not the player Moody.
Okay. I was gonna.
He's got the right beard. He's got
Hmm
a vibe. So him. Actually, we mentioned Caruso. That's a good one too. It feels like he's tatted and he looks like he could be in Tool or something. So
It's
that,
the bald head, and yeah,
yeah,
it
or
plays
like
into a vibe.
sing for like Show Me the Body or something.
Oh man, love Show Me the Body.
Yeah, he's got that vibe.
Right,
Um,
shirtless.
those two,
He sings shirtless for sure.
yeah, and it's probably just because they're both pale, like bald
Yeah.
dudes, but
Right.
um, yeah, those two, I don't there's not a ton of those vibes on the Warriors, so
Your
um,
band's starting to sound a little heavier. I don't know if you're going that direction. You're gonna
I
keep
mean,
the
I mostly love, I grew up on heavy music and I
yeah.
kind of gravitate towards it, but I guess it is a mood thing. I mean, I grew up studying and playing jazz too, so that's like
Sure.
the other part of it, but I'm not putting together a jazz band.
No, you don't
That's,
have enough. There's a lot of players involved.
yeah, and it's not as fun as thinking about which of these dudes would headbang. Um,
True.
so those two, I feel like AD actually would be kind of sick. He's got a vibe. I like his eyebrows. I like his hair. That's a vibe. If Boogie was still playing, that'd be another.
I mean, you could do it. This could be any time. Boogie could rock it.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna say Boogie
You could throw him
on
on the drums.
yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to throw him on bass. I feel like that'd be disrespectful to
Yeah.
his
Right.
energy. But yeah, so I
You
guess
got
one
you got
more.
vocals, guitar, and drums.
Yeah. So those three maybe I should have some kind of like, no. Boogie's a bad boy. So that's we're fine. Um I man, thinking of people or bands or just anything is like not, I'm very like slow processing, so it's one of those
All
things.
good.
But
It's I've been doing this for a little bit, so it's
yeah,
interesting to see everyone's different answer.
I feel like DeMar DeRozan is a cool guitarist vibe.
Yeah.
So
Second
Um,
guitar there.
yeah, second guitar there. I mean, Wemby would be cool on bass, actually.
The wingspan unmatched.
Yeah,
He's
I
playing
feel like
that thing in his ankles.
his power stance is like kind of ridiculous. So that's two guitars, drums, bass. I need a
Yeah.
singer? Or
No,
no,
you got
Caruso's
Caruso.
singer. Perfect.
That's a squad right there. Yeah, that's a heavy band too, for sure.
That's a heavy band and a really crazy good basketball team.
Yes. A balanced team, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help it.
You
I'm always like thinking about the run, you know?
can never stop. Yeah. Well, dude, this has been awesome talking. Thanks for coming on. It's always happy to talk Warriors and shit. And yeah, hope you I don't know if you guys have any more. You just finished tour, but are you just chilling for a little bit?
Yeah, we're playing that really sick emo festival
Oh man. I wish I
in
was going to that.
October.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one with like all the real emo bands,
Right.
not us included, as if I'm saying we're like real
I
emo, but we're
mean,
just happy to
to
be
be included
on the
is
bill.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're all hyped to just hang out and watch a bunch of legendary bands play. So, and we play before like Pinback and American football, and it's
Unreal.
amazing. Yeah. So that'll be cool. And a lot of homies there. And then we're gonna do a run of shows out to that festival that we'll announce soon.
Sick.
So that'll be cool.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again for coming on, man. It's been great talking.
Yeah, thanks for having me.